For those of you coming from different programming language backgrounds, it might be unexpected to learn that in Nest, almost everything is shared across incoming requests. Remember that Node.js does not follow the request-response multi-threaded stateless model, in which every request is processed by a separate thread. Because of this, using singleton instances is fully safe for our applications. However, there are edge cases where you may need a provider to have a request-based lifetime for a certain desired behavior. Take for example applications that require instance request tracking or multi-tenant applications. Injection scopes mechanism allow to obtain the desired provider lifetime behavior you need. By default, every provider in Nest.js is a singleton. So as an example, when we use injectable in our coffee service, it's really a shorthand implementation for passing in an object with scope and scope default, the default being singleton, as the value. The instance lifetime of a provider is tied directly to our application's lifecycle. Once our application has bootstrapped, all singleton providers have been instantiated. As a best practice, using singleton scope is recommended for most use cases, most notably for performance reasons. Alright, so now that we've seen the default behavior, let's dive into two other lifetimes available for injectable providers. These are transient and request scope lifetimes. Transient providers are not shared across consumers. Each consumer that injects a transient provider will receive a new dedicated instance of that provider. Let's say we change our coffee service to be scope transient. Let's update the console log here inside our coffee service constructor to say coffee service instantiated, just so we can test and make sure this instantiated more than once in our application. Let's make note of the fact that our coffee service is being used in two spots, in Coffee's controller and Coffee brand's factory. Now, let's head to the terminal and start up the application. Once it's finished building, we can see that when our application started up, Coffee service instantiated shows up twice. If we remove the scope transient line from our injectable and head back to the terminal, we'll see Coffee service instantiated only appear once now. This is because our service is back to being a singleton again. To specify the scope of a custom provider, add an extra property named scope. Let's use our Coffee brand's example from our previous lesson. If we add scope transient here, then we are all set, and it will work exactly like in our previous example. Our last scope lifetime option is known as request scope. Request scope provides a new instance of the provider exclusively for each incoming request. Note that the instance is also automatically garbage collected after the request has completed processing. To mark a provider as a request scope, simply pass in scope request into your injectable. Let's try it again on our coffee service, making sure we still have our console log in the constructor. And just like that, the coffee service will be instantiated on every request. In the next lesson, we'll dive even deeper into request scopes. See you there.